Hello,
Hello. Is it the hottest day of the year?
the hottest day of the year, and we don't have a guest this week, and we're under major pressure to get more guests in. Just say
Yeah,
that from the jump.
yeah. I
Kate
think
and
I think we
Michael
can,
created a dangerous precedent.
at best, we can regard this as a palate cleanser.
Yeah,
I
yeah. This
suspect,
is
but
this
it
is like
might be the beginning of the decline.
a rubbish. What's a palate cleanser? A rubbish sorbet.
Yeah, yeah,
Very
yeah,
thin.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what do they? What's the? There's a term, isn't there, for sitcoms? On sitcoms, they do an episode when they've run out of budget.
See, is that this
So,
one?
where they have like they do one where they go on location and they have a guest star, and then the next one often is like, oh, I think they call it a bottle episode, maybe, where everything's on the same set. Because it's
This is
cheaper. So this is that, this is like we couldn't get a guest. We're going to talk about something. We'll kind of try and keep it short. I think would be the thing. We should get some more guests.
we're
We
going to
should,
get some more guests. We're open to suggestions, but we are going to get some more guests.
yeah, because the
Um,
Michael and Kate were massive hits.
Huge. Yeah. Blockbusters even. Um, so because we're in the world and we read stuff, we thought we would talk about awards, award entries. There's the obvious cheating's a big word, isn't it? So we should probably unpack that one a little bit. Stuff that's happened at Cannes, AI, all of that. And I've
Yeah.
actually read about all of them. So
Have
I've
you?
prepped. Have you prepped? Would you
I've
say?
done a little bit of prep. I've done a bit of prep in that I think that we should separate creative awards from planning awards as topics for discussion, and maybe depending how long it takes, only do one or make two separate episodes or something, because I think they sort of work quite differently.
I'm
And
in total agreement with that. Yeah.
do you want to unpack some research for us? Who's been accused of
Well,
cheating?
there's been a few. It looks like Brazil's had a rough time, is what I'd say, in all of this. And the really unfortunate thing is, it's a bit of a perfect storm of lots of stuff that people like to talk about all at the same time. So obviously, Cannes gets a lot of chat. Creative awards get a lot of chat. They provide, momentum and for some people glory, and they help get people jobs and justify jobs and all things that are important. And as we all know, they're part of what motivates good creatives. So I get it. Um, the cheating thing seems to be about AI. AI is coming up a lot. Um, a term that is used indiscriminately, which is in itself confusing. So we've got cheating, we've got AI, we've got creative agencies and people having to step down from their jobs as a result of this at a time when two agencies have gone under this week in London alone, both of which I worked at. So it's Modern Citizens, previously known as Creature, and Mullen Lowe are downsizing and moving into a building with kind of other um, agencies from the same network
Uh,
because of the whole network pressure that
yeah,
seems to be happening across the board. So it's tough times for absolutely everybody, which is really, really rubbish. And then you get a couple of really good stories, which obviously, and anyone who's ever worked on an award entry knows how much time and money and effort has gone into it. And they are really good stories, and how they were represented seems to be the problem and where the word cheating has come from. And it's the use of AI generated content in order to simulate greater effectiveness or to make the award story come across as better than it was.
so it's
And
in the case study
yeah,
about the ad, I'm going to say,
yeah,
rather than the ad itself.
yeah. So the one that everybody immediately mentioned in this sort of latest conversation, and we should say, by the way, for kind of context, you cheated on a specific, you misrepresented a story, and then there's a whole other overlapping bucket to me, which is massaging a story without breaking it. which I think absolutely everybody does, both at a
Yeah.
creative and a strategic level. So I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of pearl clutching and there's a very little acknowledgement. There's some acknowledgement of like everybody's trying to make it look as good as they possibly can. The line has been crossed,
Yeah.
um, and that's shit. So the line between massage and fiction, I think, was something we should come back to in reference to both creative and strategic awards. But DM9, there was these two awards. One's called Plastic Blood, which was just really great. And like all of these things, very simple. Microplastics in the blood. Everybody knows about microplastics. Technology by Oka Biotech takes plastic pulled from the blood and creates things with that plastic to show and bring to life how much plastic is being ingested. Very cool, very tangible, and it's just the way that I think that it's not like a bad blood scenario where the biotech doesn't work. It's simply how the story was told,
Right.
and all of these things come down to how much have you massaged or dramatized your story in order to make it look really, really good. So that was DM9 Plastic Blood, and then the other one was Efficient Ways to Pay. Again, a really good idea. Inefficiency from an energy point of view of appliances in the home in Brazil, old appliances driving up energy bills. Get a new appliance in, and then you don't pay at all up front. You find out what your saving is on your energy bill then the first month, and that's how much you pay for it.
Right.
So it's sort of neat and sustainable, and both are about sustainability. Both happen to be in Brazil, and the AI generated content in order to make the video look as much as in a world as these all do, and they all look the same, by the way, to me anyway. Shouldn't take away from the core of the fact that they're both really cool ideas. They take difficult, intangible businesses with extremely complicated offerings, and they tell a creative story with them. And Brazil's always been a really interesting creative market. So that's just shit for everybody involved.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's that like I guess a system and a process that developed to award like a poster and put a bunch of posters next to each other and say, is that a better poster than that? And had some checks and balances to make sure, did that poster run or not?
Yeah.
Is now a thing where you have to go, here's an idea which is not really advertising at all. It's product development or product invention or blah, blah, blah. It's like you know, it's a very complex, intangible thing. We're going to judge that based on a film that you send us. I mean, it's not going to work, is it? It's going to break down somewhere, and it's going to break down. And even the version which was, is that poster better than that poster, was full of corruption and bribery, probably, and you know what I mean. It's like, because it's not, because there's so much incentive to win something.
Yeah. And
It's
the other one I saw, which I think is part of this year's entries that have had to be withdrawn as winners, I think, will then get an angry comment section. There's something called Gold Equals Death, which is about illegal gold mining affecting an indigenous population, and to, you guessed it, raise awareness of this. They put gold blocks, these made from this illegal gold source, back into circulation with death certificates of the indigenous population etched directly onto the gold blocks. So, leaving aside how the case of the effectiveness of that creative idea was represented, which is why it's been withdrawn, the sheer logistical lift and cost of doing that, considering the number of ideas I've seen, which involves, especially on Unilever, like, we'd like to make a kind of branded bog brush, not a gold bar. People were etching gold bars and releasing them into the what they say is the kind of sort of black market. The number of individuals that must have had to have been involved in that to pull something like that is quite, I'm assuming, quite high.
yeah, yeah.
So they're all like interesting ways of trying to draw attention to worthwhile social topics which don't get enough traction, and that's the fan on the floor.
You're right.
Feel really strongly about this case.
Yeah.
It was interesting to me that they weren't about carbonated drinks or cars or they weren't in kind of that. It wasn't that sort of category. Those weren't those kind of stories. They happened to be, which is, of course, won't do any favors for the next kind of sustainable case study for a creative idea that's going to come along. They'll be under much more scrutiny. There'll be more rigor required from judges, and it's been pointed out the judges aren't necessarily. I don't think they are at all at fault. They're in a room together,
Yeah.
sweating it out for a long, long time. There are many stages. They look at a lot. We've all done it. Judging you have information chucked at you, and you have to make quite quick decisions. And now there'll be an additional layer of, have we interrogated the veracity of this properly? Like, have they misrepresented the effectiveness of this story?
Well, and also it feels a bit like the those kinds of projects slightly they're counting on the publicity around the thing to be part of the thing, right? Like it's not enough to do whatever to a gold bar. You have to then tell everyone that you've done it. And
Yeah.
in order for it to be, if it's going to be effective, it has to be effective because it's become famous. And so you make materials around that to make it famous. And it's partly, and you're incented again to make those materials as compelling and dramatic as possible. So you hype them up. And then you've got a bunch of materials where someone says, "Oh, can we turn this into a case study?" You're like, "Well, I've already hyped it up because that was the point,
Yeah.
and that gets quite difficult, I guess. And I don't know where are the rules in that? It's like if you go, you can't if you're putting AI in, you can't make video without AI. You know what I mean anymore. You can, and if you go, we can't use AI. Well, like, can I use color correction? Can I use lighting?
I mean,
Like
the graphics for, the bit in every case study video ever, which is like, this is the amount of news attention it got. And then there's a graphic design style that's always used to show the sheer number of, is that allowed? Yeah. Are they taking too many liberties with how that's represented? Is
yeah,
that, so as with all of these things, it's kind of like, where do you draw the line? And especially with some of the companies involved in this, you're trying to make a really compelling, choppy story out of something that's really complicated.
yeah.
And kind of not get to the flashy bit, but give everything equal weight. And it's a big old expenditure of effort. Yeah.
Have you ever, if there's a line between, if there's a spectrum from like Hitler Diaries to something very true, I can't.
Mm.
Have you ever massaged an award entry?
I mean, I've been asked to,
Right.
and sometimes it's really easy in terms of you can say, as much as I would like to tell the best possible story that this lends itself to, like 85% of clients, completely made up figure, there isn't enough data in order to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not a question of representation. It's simply the essential requirements in order to be able to support your presence in this category. Because it requires somebody to be really on it and have invested and be rigorous in tracking the right things in the right way for quite a long time. Even for the lighter award entries, some people are like, oh, it's pretty easy to win an Effie versus IPA or APG, if we move on to the strategy awards. One of the Effies, I was like, we can't write this because there was just sort of a dipstick approach to data for that particular client. And I was like, it can't be done, or if it is going to be done, it's to the point where it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So I was like, this would just be an irresponsible use of everybody's time and your money.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And I did write one where I was like, I feel like this is twisting the data. And we did submit it, and unsurprisingly, it didn't win. And everybody was kind of like, well-deserved outcome sort of thing. Obviously, 2 months of my life I'll never get back.
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
definitely learn a fair amount, and a new level of respect for people who work in data science on that as ever, because they just get asked so many stupid questions around
Yes.
award season from absolutely everybody.
Yes, I can imagine that. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't think I've ever been involved in a fraudulent, in a iffy creative award. I don't think. I mean, partly because I mean, it was very old days. It's like we did make those ads; they did run. You
Yep,
know,
that
people
happened.
people liked them. So that was kind of, and we didn't have to do the whole. It created this many head. Actually, we might have done with Cog. We might have done a create.
Impressions, surely eyeballs.
Yeah, yeah, we might have done. But then we never entered anything for effectiveness awards, I don't think. So we didn't have to do that bit. Um, so it was just juries looking at films in rooms.
What was Wyden's approach to effectiveness papers?
I can't quite remember, and I imagine it changed over the years. In my time, I don't I don't think I've ever done one.
Hmm.
The department might have done. We might have done some on Honda. I can't remember. Actually, I think Stu might have won a Honda one because he won an APG award and an effectiveness award, possibly. That's Stuart Smith, ladies and gentlemen. But most of the time, clients like Nike would be like, "Are you joking? We're not going to tell people how we become effective." So they just wouldn't let you do any of
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
stuff. Um, and obviously that would be the one that would win effectiveness awards in
Yes.
that days. And it was a bit like you could just write, Joga Bonita on a bit of paper and send it in and go, send us an effectiveness award. It was clearly effective,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
but that probably wouldn't work.
So that's an interesting category of effective businesses who have no interest in telling that story, because for them it's not worth showing what's under the hood. They're not driven by that form of accolade. They don't need the attention and the prominence in that way. And I
No,
wonder, yeah.
I mean, and Nike marketing directors were going, "Oh, great! If we get an effectiveness award, I can get a job at B&Q." And they also didn't want us to ever win any new business. Like they hated the idea of us pitching or using Nike work as ways to pitch. Be like, well, what are you doing with other clients? You know, uh,
Did you ever have to have those conversations, which is like, we can't just have you. This is a reality.
not really. I mean, partly because they loved it. Like when I went to London and the Wyden London office was like 20 people. And basically we had Nike and a bit of Diet, or like some, oh, we had Smint, I think. I can't remember. Anyway, we had like not much. And they loved that. So they threatened to fire us like every other week because
Mm.
they just knew if we didn't have them, we would close the office. Um, so they could just do what they were like. I don't like this. I think we might have to fire you. And the work would go, and because they could just go to Amsterdam. Like it wasn't, they weren't particularly invested in us having a London office, other than it was convenient. Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's probably a caricature of the relationship over that year or 18 months, but that's sort of how it felt, you know.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
yeah, and obviously also they knew how good they were
Mm.
as as a client, both like at being a client, but also
For
how
you guys.
necessary they were to us.
Yeah.
Um,
So returning to the strategic
yes,
paper writing swirl, when we were working together, you had just won an APG Silver for gov.uk. And just for the viewers at home, Russell told me that the APG Awards were a really casual affair and it was very uncool to dress up. So we went to the do in the King's Cross Pancras, that's wrong, hotel, the big Gothic one next to the train station. It was not
yeah,
a casual affair. I
yeah.
will never forget the lady in Ogilvy was in a proper ball gown, like a frock, and you were in jeans, and so was I, and we looked crazy. So that was fun.
Didn't we were the king and queen of the ball, Flora, because we looked, interesting and unique.
That
That's
was
how
my
we.
first experience at a strategic awards ceremony. But do you remember writing that paper?
No, I mean, until you just said it now.
You'd completely forgotten that you'd written it.
Well, sort of. Partly because I mean, and looking back now, I'm like, that is ludicrous. How can gov.uk have won a silver? It was like easily one of the best um, strategic communication things of the last 20 years. I mean, it might have been that I wrote it badly,
Yeah.
and obviously also I didn't like do anything. So, but as a story, if you look back and go, well, I mean, this is part of the thing about strategic awards, right? It's not how effective it was. It's like how good the paper is. You know,
Yeah. And
that's
there would be an interesting filter to look back at them now. You mentioned about gov.uk in a conversation recently. People can't remember how bad it was before. They
yeah,
assume that that's always been the system, and of course it wasn't. It was completely changed, and now it's all. I was about to say integrated, but that's underselling it. It works, and it's simple, and it's intuitive.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, if you bump into there are bits of HMRC and other things which are still bad, and then you do remember the difference. But
PAYE remains a shit show. You get stuck in a loop and you go around. But I think
yeah,
tax has and like anyone who's read any David Foster Wallace knows this to be true. It's certainly in America. The world of tax and accountancy thrives on opacity and complexity. And as soon as that's made simple and streamlined, as a species, we're doomed. Like that's the belief and behavior of accountants, I think. So
yes. But I think there's something about strategy award. I guess the APG and IPA things, which if you have to assume that none of the numbers are made up,
mm,
let's say you shouldn't make up the numbers. The that they are to some extent more honest and direct than creative awards have become now, because you are basically going, I'm judging the case study. I'm not judging the work based on the case study. I'm
yeah,
judging the case study.
yeah,
You know.
yeah.
So I always think it's a bit like, I remember people used to complain about, like, if you were trying to hire planners or strategists, you just interview them basically and
Mm.
talk to them and then decide whether to hire them or not. And people are like, oh, but we should see their work, and you kind of go, and I'm like, being interviewed is their work. That's what a good planner or strategist does. They appear in a room and like try and convince you of a strategy. If they're not very good at being interviewed, they're not going to be very good at being a planner. And I think case studies are a bit the same. It's like, if you can't write your strategy down in a compelling and interesting way, then you don't deserve to win. However good your strategy was, it's not about how good it was. It's like the case that you make that's the, you know,
That's that's interesting, and I do agree because it's about
you're,
making a
you're
case, and
saying
people.
that in a way that says, I don't agree.
No, I do, but I wondered if there's an additional bit to it, which is about what effective interviewing looks like, rather than being an
Yeah.
effective, successful interview candidate. Because you're right, a planner should be able to convince and persuade and make a case. That's kind of misunderstood, I think, from the people outside the industry looking in and think planners need to be able to be salesmen, which I don't entirely agree with, because we suck at account management, we suck at client services, and it's appropriate that we are bad at that. It's so much better to leave that to people who are really really good at it. Uh, but it's about asking the right questions for us as the people assessing strategic talent, and I think loads of people aren't very good at that. Getting the best out of the planner in that situation, in the interview situation.
Yes. Yes, I think that's true. And there's also that's like being a good client, right? It's like
Right.
you if yeah, I've just run aground now there in that
But
sentence.
people
But
should be good clients. That's a
yeah,
good.
yeah, that's the best. We've strayed a long way from awards, haven't we? Which is
we
good.
which is good, which is good.
Yeah,
The what was the other thing to say about? So headlines are AI. People were using AI and are going to increasingly use AI, understandably, to fill in gaps where they don't have bits. And
yeah,
why shouldn't they? We're all using those tools all the time. So exactly that. And with award entry case study videos, that's majorly run aground. And that's not, and then there's a whole misrepresentation of data, fraudulent use of information. That's very, very difficult to justify. But I guess the rules on case studies and how case studies are created and the methodology, it definitely is time for a bit of a reboot. And we don't, for strategic awards, it's less of a thing, right?
yeah.
It's about
I
the written
assume so.
argument, really.
Yeah, I mean it's a written case, and I mean with the APG, well, I don't know if they still do this, but you used to have to present it as well,
Yeah, that's still very much a thing.
which again feels like a real life, a simulation of real life. Like that's basically the job. It's like writing a strategy and presenting it, and if you do that well, you know, um, then you deserve to win, as it were.
It's it's kind of like a Viva, which is really rigorous and quite intimidating. And I don't think there's a creative equivalent.
No,
So it's
no,
like make a video, make it as good as you possibly can. That's obviously run aground into some serious problems because
yeah,
the pressure to
yeah,
make it good is so high. Up till now, there's been no accountability and there's no grilling. There's no like talk me through the justification for making the jump from that image to that image type thing, as opposed to
no.
strategic awards where you slog for months on a written case. There's nowhere to hide, and they ensure that there's nowhere for you to hide because then you go into a room and 5, 6 people sometimes pick you up on every single thing and really, really grill you.
Well, and it's also it's just a small. I mean, in the world of London, UK ad award kind of stuff or strategy, it's a small world. So people know stuff, and there'll be rumors, and if you say, yeah, we're the number one ceramics, something something, and people go, no, you're not. People like you can't claim too much. I def It's coming back to me now. I judged an APG award thing, and there was a paper which claimed some stuff, and everyone was kind of going, I don't think that can be right. You know what I mean? It was like that. I'm sure that's not the case. Blah, blah, blah. It just sort of smelt funny. Um, and there were phone calls made, and like, are we sure this is true? I can't really remember what happened actually, but
It sounds like fact checking took place, and
hmm.
it's only happened once to me, but on a sort of an awards strategic award panel, there were 3 papers in the same batch who were all alleging the same thing.
Oh wow,
And it was one of those things where we were like, and I think it was a classic competitive like superiority claim, but it wasn't that any of us had a problem with them making the claim. It wasn't actually, it was just part of the blurb, but it was literally impossible that all 3 of them could be right.
right, yeah,
Then it
yeah,
was like,
yeah,
and then you obviously dig into it and you find who's got the most right to say that. But
yeah,
it means that the other 2 were kind of automatically screwed.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. It does. It's reminded me though. Actually, you saying that has reminded me certainly for like the APG and the IPA awards, like just how useful they are as learning things, because people have to write down broadly what they did and why they did it, and that's very useful to read and understand. I remember really enjoying reading APG papers, because it's like, oh, that's interesting, or like Kate's papers on smoking. You're just like,
yeah.
this is really clever. Someone should make a documentary about this. This is like interesting. Someone has done something clever and thoughtful, and it mattered. It's like that. I loved her paper. Um, but there's also a version of it which is it's also a bit like Instagram. It's like no one writes, people don't write the this didn't work paper. You don't all the papers you read are about enormous success. You
Yeah,
know,
and it's quite difficult to pivot the failures into compelling stories. Obviously, one of my favorite books is Brand Failures, but that's about businesses that didn't work rather than the award entry that kind of almost got carried out off, but then didn't.
Yeah.
Um,
And if you just read APG awards, like all you read about is how to be successful and like, it's like whereas 80% of the time you're not doing something that's going to win that, and no one tells you you don't read papers about like how to get decent work out of a shit client, right? Or,
well, I wouldn't say they're a shit client, but hardworking businesses. I think that's when the Marketing Society papers really come into
oh,
their own because it's retailers, it's educational institutions, it's
mm,
it's it's not a glamorous place to be,
yeah, yeah,
but it's the one that the clients are much more invested in because obviously it's less splashy, but it's direct peer recognition and competitor recognition. Um, and they're not all absolutely amazing smash hit stories.
right.
So are they worse stories? But they're stories of, how like I'm making this up. The Asda rebrand drove this much more volume
Yeah,
in,
yeah,
north of Hadrian's Wall as a result of the fishing crisis. It's that kind of thing.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
from a strategist point of view, they're really, really interesting. I think it'd be quite difficult to get anybody else steamed up about them. Um,
This is why you're better than me. You've got this
I
rigor.
think I probably spent more time around the Marketing Society awards. That's probably why. I think I probably just had more retail. I mean, I never did anything splashy like Nike.
No,
It was,
no,
we're
yeah.
talking FMCG and retail all the live long day. And it's a lot about turning up, you
It
know?
proper work though, Flora.
It's
It's honest
consistent,
work.
just chipping away, often with chips. Um,
What award would you like to win?
would I like to win, or would I
Hmm.
like for
You,
someone, like for some,
would you
like for a
like to
client or
win
for the business?
personally? What would you like to have on your shelf?
I think the IPA is like the IPA or APG is obviously like the top of the strategic trees. Um, I had, I really enjoy creative awards because they're more fun. They're a bit frothier. They know how to have better parties. And it's so nice to see how much of a boost it gives creative teams to win them. So like, I was the only strat at the Creative Circle Awards when I went with my then agency. And I was like, it was just night and day from the APG Awards where you know, we broke one of the awards. Someone accidentally threw a glass of water in someone else's eye. I had to take the broken award home in my bag. I was 8.5 months pregnant, so I was sober and I had to sort of carry all these broken bits. It was just pure chaos,
Right.
quid chaos.
Yeah, yeah,
People not knowing how to function as opposed to just a really good time, a
yeah,
creative
yeah,
award.
yeah, yeah.
So
I think as well. I mean, there's something about. I mean, I guess this is also why it goes wrong. Is like awards are so central to the creative economy, like to how you get jobs
yeah,
and how you get promoted and things like that. That's, I mean, in a weird way, that's why they're so important, and that's inevitably why things go wrong and people exaggerate, or I think they seem less central to planning jobs, I think, but I don't know.
I
Um,
I would agree with that, and I don't know why. I think it definitely doesn't hurt if a candidate says, I've won all of these things. I really hope it's not as basic as if I haven't read that paper, I'm not going to go away and find that paper and read it in order to assess that candidate. I really hope it's not as lazy as that.
yeah, yeah,
It
yeah,
could be.
yeah. I do. I think we've discussed this before, but one of the things that Tony Davidson, Kim Papworth, who were the creative directors on Honda at Wyden and Kennedy in London, were really good at was sharing creative credit.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we wanted to do with a lot of the work we did, it was created by like a large amount of the creative department. It wasn't kind of like you two do that and you two do that. There were a lot of, especially when we were doing the pitch and the initial work, there was a lot of everyone in the room sort of cross-fertilizing ideas, as it were. Tony and Kim would do a lot of, well, we're going to use your headline and your visuals, and can you write the copy and that kind of stuff. And in agencies I'd been at before, and actually even in Wine in Portland, people were like very jealously like, well, you don't cross the lines. It's like this is our work and that's their work, and because of the importance of credit to a creative career. It's like you need your name on it for it to count. And
Which I get, and I'm
yeah,
absolutely not. I would never undermine that currency because it's tied to the industry not apologizing for itself for once, which is great. It's like something to just
yeah,
be straightforwardly positive about. Keen. The thing that I find madly ironic about that is claiming solo credit or just one team for something that we all know
yeah,
everyone will have touched,
yeah.
like to some degree. It
And
doesn't
that
mean
that was
everyone, but it's a shared accolade, like
yeah,
acknowledged.
and that's why they were Tony and Kim were. Everyone knew that if you would touch the ad in any way, you'd get a credit.
Yeah,
Basically, if you were in the creative department,
yeah.
obviously, But and that did facilitate like better work, I think, because they just knew how it worked. They knew how that worked, which was good.
And it's
Look,
why I think it's nice when it's mob handed when they have in whatever award shot they've got 50 people all fighting for space grinning on a stage because
yeah,
it doesn't look like they're all trying to touch it but they all as in the award but they all did touch the win, so
yeah,
they're all sharing in that moment and it's not just some awkward dude in a bad suit being like before giving an uninspiring 50 words. Like no one wants that. We don't need any more of that.
no, no. Do you know the have we talked about this? The is it Richard Cook story? The D&AD credit story. You know
I don't
this?
think we have.
So there was a copywriter in London called Richard Cook who it was in the old I mean this is probably in the 70s or 80s, probably 80s. When print ads would win awards like a double page spread, with clever headline, nice picture, lots of elegant copy. And an ad he'd written won an award, but it didn't have his name on it. It had the name of the creative director as the writer, which he was miffed about, but required still needed a job, and so didn't kick off too much. And then the next time he wrote a potentially award-winning ad, he put as an acrostic on the first letter of every sentence in the copy, Richard Cook wrote this on the ad, which ran and was then entered into awards. And he did have his name on that because once it ran, he was able to point out that it said Richard Cook wrote this on his
I
thing.
mean,
Good
it's
story.
it's good. It's a bit too clever, but it is good. And I've got to say that is a nice word count if you can get it. That's what I think about that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Working
yeah,
in the world of 90 characters is, generous at this stage of the game.
yeah, yeah. But it also I realised in I wrote this up once for a sort of newsletter thing that obviously had to have almost the entire agency on board to do that because someone had to typeset it. Like if they'd changed it, if they'd edited it at some point, it would have broken. Like you had to. It must have been. It takes a village,
Mm,
to do that. But is that it for awards?
I think that's what we've got. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's 40 minutes. That's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
good.
It's pretty
Yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. We need more questions and we need more guests. We should think about
Yeah,
that.
I think we need it's difficult. Do we want more experts? Do we want to get some different voices in there? Do we want to get, we want to mix it up a bit? I
Yeah.
think the experts are good also because they don't get that self-conscious. But
Well, let's
thoughts,
see.
thoughts.
Let's see what comes flooding in from
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, obviously. We'll have to
from the community.
go through the mailroom. Yeah.
I haven't heard the words mailroom for a long time.
I love the idea of a building with a mailroom. Do love
Yeah,
it. Love the idea of the job, starting with the mailroom job.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Have you ever? I was old enough to work somewhere which had a mailroom, which also had pigeonholes for everyone in the company.
sadly after my time, but only just.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. Nice
Okay.
to see you. I'm going to press stop, but we don't have to stop talking, but we are
Okay.
going to stop
Okay.
recording.